All right, cheers and salutations. Now, many of you are probably wondering, why did I play the breaking theme news? Because recently, a good friend and colleague of ours, who we've known since the very beginning of Hard Lens Media, reached out to me in regards towards election integrity in our state, as well as the fact that, surprise, surprise, color me shocked, but third parties and independents are being removed from the ballot, or either that, for especially for mail-in ballots. Now, this good friend, he's been with the Libertarian Party, and if you've been watching Hard Lens Media, we've interviewed Greens, we've interviewed Libertarians, we've interviewed Socialists. Yes, we've interviewed Democrats, never a Republican. Come on, Republicans, don't be afraid. We don't bite. But I have to get serious here because I'm deeply concerned about the fact of how Cook County mail-in ballots give no option to vote for a Libertarian candidate. I believe that if you are running for office in this constitutional republic of ours and you meet the requirements to be on the ballot, then yes, the voters, the people who signed your name to be on the ballot, should have every right to vote for you. Now, if they're willing to do this for Libertarians, they're going to do it for Greens, they're going to do it for Independents. That's what happens in the great state of Illinois. We can talk about this for a very long time, but I decided to bring a guest on the show. His name is Chris Laurent. He is with the Libertarian Party. He's also running for an office in Cook County. However, him and many of his colleagues in the Illinois Libertarian Party are finding a surprise. Their names aren't there. So joining us is Chris himself. Chris, thank you so much for joining our show. For our viewers and subscribers, those of them who may not be familiar with the so fantastic legal red tape that third parties have to go through in our state, let's start from the beginning. Getting on the ballot in Illinois, what kind of monumental tasks does your group have to face off against to get ballot access?
Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me, Kit. It's a pleasure to be here. But you bring up a very good point. Getting on the ballots is probably one of the hardest tasks here in Cook County and Illinois, especially.
Right.
I have with me some of the numbers just for my district for the U.S. House of Representatives. For a Democrat to get on the ballot, the signature requirements are only 629.
629.
Right.
That's a high number, but not okay. Reasonable. And for Libertarians,
when you're talking about the U.S. House of Representatives, it's kind of a very slim margin to get to, but it's actually easier for Republicans. 277 signatures are required, and that kind of shows you that the prominence really is with the Democrat Party. They've got the support out there. It's going to be a much easier task for a Democrat to get the 629 signatures rather than a Republican getting 277.
Right.
Now, here's the big variance, though. Since if you're not in that particular race, like, for example, for the Cook County, we are established in Cook County. Mm-hmm. So we're still considered an independent or a new party, which they don't really delineate Greens, Libertarian, Socialists, what have you. Mm-hmm. In order for a new party to get on that exact same ballot alongside that Republican and that Democrat, you need a total of 9,124 signatures.
I'm not laughing. It's just more of, boy, nothing has changed. And we've been doing this since 2017. So, folks, just remember 629 for Democrats, 9,000 for any new party. So if you're Green, Libertarian, Socialist, Independent, whatever, laughs and jokes and a swell good time. So now getting the process of, getting the signatures and everything else, obviously you have to go then through the monumental juggernaut that is called the Cook County. I believe they got to verify all the signatures. Can you enlighten our audience about that process? Because you're running for office and obviously getting these signatures, you have to make sure that every I is dotted properly and every T is crossed. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, yes. The verification process is what they call it, where usually it's about a week or two for the Board of Elections to sit there and have these petitions readily available for people to view and challenge them. Oftentimes, there'll be like the wrong zip code for a particular signature, so that's a disqualifier. So one of the things that the Libertarian Party has done, we always assume that someone's going to challenge some of our signatures, so we usually double that number. So
It's a smart tactic, yeah.
Right. So when you look at the big picture, we're not talking about 9,000 signatures. We're roughly talking about 18,000 signatures, just
Wow.
to make certain that there's no shaky ground that we're standing on, so to speak. Which, like I said, that disparity between 629 for the Democrats and 9,000, that canyon gets wider with just that metric.
Mm-hmm. So now let's start with this discovery of what happened in regards towards your name and a few of the other colleagues in the Illinois Libertarian Party not being on the ballot, especially mail-in ballots, to be more precise, to mail-in ballots. What exactly happened? When was this discovery made? Can you start from the beginning? Because obviously there's a whole process, and election night is going to be on November 5th. So we only got a few precious days to rectify this disaster. So that way, those who want to maybe vote for a Libertarian Party candidate can while they still can. And so let's start from the beginning.
Okay, well, the issue that you're specifically speaking of, one of my colleagues, Mike Murphy, who's running for the clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County, is the official office that he's running for. We found, I think it was in the northern suburbs of Chicago, to where his name was actually on the ballot. They just didn't have the bubble for people to darken to actually cast their vote for that particular candidate.
Okay. So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. Continue.
Well, and the impetus of this is that particular aspect of the election is run by the clerk of the Cook County. So there's a Cook County clerk and there's a clerk of the court. So there's a delineation there. Ironically, Cook County Clerk is the office I'm currently running for.
Okay, so now that the fact that bubble's not in there, I mean, is there any kind of way in which emergency ballots can be printed out to be sent out? Is there any way this can be reversed? Because that seems like a grave error to not have that there. And if we all know election machines, if it's not filled in properly, it's not going to be counted. And never once has there ever been a situation where a vote magically disappeared in Illinois.
Never. But well, it kind of endemic to the issue, to where it's like, okay, well, we've been told, oh, well, we're going to remail that slew of ballots to that particular precinct. From what we've heard thus far, it's isolated to one particular precinct, to where that error was made. But I think that's a little too late, in my opinion.
Okay. Is there going to be any kind of legal repercussions? Because in the past, when we've covered the 2018 midterm election cycle, 2020, well, to be more precise, late 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, the story is always the same here in Illinois. The Illinois Greens, the Illinois Libertarians, you guys have to file with the Illinois Supreme Court, or either that have some kind of legal situation in which, your names are all on the ballots, that that your voters can vote for you guys. I mean, is there any kind of situation similar to that taking place now? And if so, is there going to be any kind of repercussions in the future? Because this all seems malicious. We've seen, and I've done stories on how independents and third-party candidates are not allowed to be on the debate stage, not be allowed to be on the ballot, being removed from the ballot. We see the Democrats really going the warpath against Dr. Jill Stein and the Green Party. We've seen their hypocrisy with RFK Jr., even though he has endorsed Donald Trump, some of his name remains in key battleground swing states, just so that can be there to disrupt Trump. Is there anything down the road or currently happening now to really challenge this error that's been done here in Illinois?
Well, our attorney, the Libertarian Party attorney that we generally deal with, he's an election attorney, very talented guy. He's running this up the legal ladders currently. Mm-hmm. So the legal aspect of it, we are addressing it. But how do we prevent this from happening in the future? Vote Libertarian for a Cook County clerk.
Wow. All right. So as for your position, as you're running for Cook County clerk, I know we're running a little bit short on time here, but let's in a scenario in which potentially you can win, or either that, let's actually talk about your policy in regards to maybe make things easier for third parties and independents, because I've been covering this story right now in Illinois. Jill Stein is a write-in candidate, for example. Libertarians are also write-in candidates in a few other states here and there. how would you improve things or deal with the bureaucracy so that third parties and independents can actually get a fair shake? Because now more than ever, 50% of the U.S. population identifies itself as independent and has absolute disdain for both Democrats and Republicans.
Well, quite honestly, Kit, I wish I could wave a magic wand and say, well, I'm the guy that's going to make it happen. Unfortunately, that's a state law. It's a state requirement that the way that the signatures are set up. I think that if we can sit there and accept something at a county level to where it's like, hey, we're going to loosen our restrictions. We're still following the state guidelines. We're going to loosen the restrictions, basically make it easier for people to get this high bar of signature requirements. Extend, okay, if you're not going to be either one of these two parties, the duopoly, we're going to give you an extra 3 or 4 weeks to get the signatures you're going to need to get on that ballot. I think that's the way that you kind of correct it, but that's where you start to tip the scales in some regard. Mm-hmm. I don't think that you should get a leg up primarily because of who you are or what you believe in. I think that it's like, okay, well, let's extend it for everybody. You know, like, hey, rather than making it like a 6 week to where you have to get 10,000 signatures, let's go ahead and stretch it out to 9 weeks.
Sounds reasonable. Are you familiar? Maybe I could give this suggestion, and I'll probably email this to our mutual friend, our colleague. You know, I'll keep him anonymous. But are you familiar that Illinois is a ballot initiative state, and there possibly can be a way in which Illinois voters, through a ballot initiative, can actually implement a state law to make it easier for third parties and independents? Perhaps that's something you can run by some of your legal advisors for the Illinois Libertarian Party, maybe work in collaboration with other third parties and independents in this state. So that way voters can actually have another option, and it could be a huge gut check to the two-party political machine that's in our state.
Right. That's always an option. And anything that, you know, my position on especially in regards to elections, anything that people want, I want them to be able to share their voice. I think it's kind of a travesty that, you know, people say, oh yeah, well, we're a democracy. Well, I think we all know that we're actually a republic. But, you know, when people say I believe in democracy, sometimes when I look at some of the candidate, you know, packets that they give out for when you run for office, it's like, oh, you are so adorable. I just want to put you in my pocket. You know, this is not democracy. Right.
Exactly. And it is rather disappointing because for me, I've been doing this now for 7 years. I've been seeing how the libertarians and greens in our state, socialists and independents, have been stepped on, pushed aside, and it's always the same: legal challenges and trying to at least secure ballot access. Very rarely have we seen a third party or independent actually be on a debate stage against a Democrat or Republican. And it's, for me, I find this disheartening, and I hope that we can rectify this situation. So I think as a good follow-up, obviously, there's only a few precious days left for this election, but after November 5th, the world is still going on. Don't tell that to the most diehard vote blue, no matter who person, because the world will keep on going on no matter who sits in the White House. But are there going to be any kind of workshops or events or anything in which this doesn't happen again? Because if they're going to do this to a libertarian candidate or a green candidate or whoever, they're going to keep on getting away with it until people say no more. So is there anything in the future in which people can help contribute and maybe change this sick system that we have here in our state, so that way third parties and independents can actually have, surprise, surprise, you know, a fair ground to battle on?
True democracy, you mean? You know, regardless of how November 5 turns out in my particular race, I'm still going to be an ardent supporter of opening up the access for all parties, even the ones that I can't fathom their existence. I think that, hey, if you can get enough people to sit there and back you, of course you deserve a seat at the table. You deserve to, you know, to be elected in just like anyone else. Mm-hmm. So
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, but like I said, you know, hopefully I'm very hopeful, and I think I can win this. I'm very, very positive about winning my particular race. But even if it should happen that I don't win, I still am going to be an ardent supporter and a loud voice in the room saying, hey, we need to fix this.
Done deal. All right. I wish you guys all the best. And Unfortunately, for many of these mail-in ballots, if there's not a circle in, is there any way in which maybe a potential person who's getting a mail-in ballot, is there a way in which you can help advise where they can possibly vote? I mean, if it means they have to get up and go to a polling station, fine. But when a person gets that ballot, should they or should they not vote on it just in case? Just again, so that way people know what to do when they get a mail-in ballot.
Well, what I would recommend any voter that finds anything fishy, whether it be that their candidate doesn't have an option to vote for them, or if something is misspelled, anything like that, anything that doesn't jive, should I say, call the Board of Elections, of your township or your county, and say, hey, look, I want to void this ballot. I want a new one because this one doesn't look right.
All right, done deal. Well, then I want to thank you again for your time. Is there anywhere where people could follow you on social media in case they do want to help out your campaign or follow any other updates in regards to the legal situation impacting third parties and independents in Illinois?
Well, I do have a website for my campaign. It's Christopher Cook, all letters, and it's all one word.
Okay.
But before we go, Kit, I'd like to also point out that another fishy item that's been plaguing, and I'm certain you followed this as well, about the ballot lotteries.
Yes. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, when you have multiple candidates, say for Democrat, Republican, and Libertarian, such as my particular race, there's when you have people that file all in the same day, they do what they call a lottery, which basically means, hey, well, we're just going to sit there and draw a name out of a hat to figure out which order they fall into on the ballots. It's funny. They do that very often, almost every election. And it seems like the Democrats always win those lotteries. It's almost to the degree that, hey, you guys should play the regular lottery with the stroke of luck you seem to have on these ballots.
Yeah, it's a story all too familiar. And if people want to know about the Democratic machine and the influence, you got to go all the way back to Old Man Daley. I recommend the book American Pharaoh. That way you'll understand just how corrupt the system is and what Old Man Daley did to make the Democratic machine the ongoing nightmare that it is. But it is sputtering, it is cracking, and if it can fall apart, maybe there's a chance for a new chapter in Illinois politics. But let's not hold our breath too long. We might suffocate. So, Chris, I want to thank you again for your time, for joining us. As always, folks, listen, this election cycle, we're not going to tell you how to vote. It's up to you to make that choice. I do recommend, if you want to have clean hands, vote independent, vote third party, because that way you're giving a middle finger to the two-party system that has for far too long been lying to all of you. So, Chris, all the best to you guys. And what's happening to you, I want to be shocked. I want to be surprised, but this is Illinois, and it just comes with the territory, unfortunately.
Thanks for having me, Kit.
All the best to you. We're going to continue on with the rest of our show after this short break.
Idolatry, that's just fake. And all that wallowing that you tolerate, that's not faith. The kings of colony watched autonomy make our graves. The kings of colony know no policy, only rape. Now once you fall asleep, it won't bother you what they say. But the kings of colony, while they slaughter, they still complain. And we say, please color me, still too solemnly, still too plain. All hail economy, praise the pharmacy, seas in flames. They're buying up Hawaii, and the smoke's not even cleared. Those vultures smelled the fire and an enterprise appeared. Investment opportunities where melted down communities leave vacant space BlackRock has been lusting for years. The council meets in private and they don't discuss survivors. Concerns among construction groups are all Lahaina hears. They'll wander through your city with this mocking sword of pity next to Oprah and her camera crew who tore the Trail of Tears, where footage flows as freely as the stream of liquid steel and the pools of pure aluminum that trickle down your wheels. And Biden's here to say he knows exactly how it feels, cause he had a kitchen fire once and had to miss a meal. And people still believe that piece of shit deserves your vote, like he's not why supplies are being smuggled in by boat, like he's not why our citizens were forced to stay and roast. And he can't unfreeze your funding, folks, cause Azov needs it most. I'll bet my every dollar Biden watched it with a smile. I'll bet he knows the whereabouts of every missing child. He's just the kind of man who lives to trample something tribal, collecting culture's corpses just to throw them on the pile. Like he and all his buddies didn't dream about the day when those who dared defy the donor class were cleared away, when home insurance triples and you can't afford to stay, and your land falls to the hands of those whose windfall fan the flames. The state will take Lahaina and they'll bastardize its name, and tourism will swarm it all the same. You see, the state we left Lahaina shows the ground rules of the game, the planes that in the night ignite the planes. And if questions raised that reckon the potential use of lasers, I suggest you take a closer shave by way of Occam's razor. And if those civilians stood between this country and its gains, then there's really nothing further to explain. Because you may know this already, if you truly know our past, but it ain't the first occasion and it will not be the last where Americans are kettled in and made to bear the blast, are barricaded in and left for ash. How many in Lahaina now are lying there awake and still can hear the city we left leveled in our wake? They still hear all the people that we let the fire take, instructed from above to stay in place. So look to the horizon, cause a fire comes for you. Desire made incarnate of the power-hungry few who instructed the police to not let anybody through, to barricade them in, and so they do.